Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for the Wednesday, August the 29th, 2017, the special Wednesday show coming at you here on what is a rainy night where we are, and that's one of the reasons why we're on the air late tonight. The stormy weather we have here. I just don't think we would have had a good connection. It would have been kind of a mess. But so apologize for the delay here. But with the weather, it was probably for the best. But here we are on a Wednesday night instead of our usual Tuesday of which we usually do in the summer Tuesday schedule here. So a little bit different, but hey, we're getting a show in, so that's all that matters. But anyway, enough rambling. Let's get right down to it. As always, as the show starts out, I want to remind you all the ways which you can interact and contribute to the show. Continue to have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight401@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight401. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight401 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And of course, you can find us on search for In the Spotlight 401 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our fan page once you find it, once you're on it. All right, like I said, here on the air here on a Wednesday instead of we were supposed to be on the air on Tuesday night. We're on the air here on a Wednesday night because last night it wasn't a good night to do it. My plans had changed, and I got in a little bit too late, and it was just for the best to kind of push it off to tonight, so that's why we did that. So my apologies for that. But here we are on this Wednesday night, and for those of you that wanted more time to get your nomination ballots in, or winning ballots in for the In the Spotlight TV Awards, or if you need more time to do your nominee submissions for the live voted awards for the TV Awards, well, you got that extra time tonight. So there you go. And plus you got an extra hour tonight too. So yeah, you got some extra time. But anyway, needless to say, now that we're on the air, that's it. That's the end of it. No more. The deadline has passed now, so we'll not accept any more submissions. We will not accept any more submissions in regards to the In the Spotlight TV Award winning ballots, and in regards to the In the Spotlight TV Award nomination ballots for the live voted awards. So if you haven't submitted by now, you're out of luck. You've had extra time. You had yesterday and an extra hour today. So you had time and you didn't get them in. So now again, the deadline has passed. So no more ballots, no more winning ballots for the TV Awards, and no more nomination submissions for the live vote awards for the TV Awards. That deadline has now passed. Again, you had extra time. Deadline was supposed to be yesterday. We pushed those deadlines to today. And you had extra hour tonight too, so you have plenty of time. If you haven't got them in yet, well, you're out of luck. So that has passed. The In the Spotlight TV Awards will be next Tuesday. This coming Tuesday, actually, I should say. Now we're past Tuesday now. This coming Tuesday, which is September the 4th at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, will be the TV Awards. We usually do them on a Thursday. We're not doing that this year. We're doing them on a Tuesday this year. So be aware of that. So the TV Awards will be on Tuesday. For those of you wondering if we're going to have enough time to get the ballots all counted with the deadline being later, yes, we will. We've already started doing it. We're well into the process. So I don't think there'll be any issues at all. At worst, we might just be a little late in things coming in Tuesday night, but I don't anticipate a problem at all. So TV Awards this coming Tuesday night, that will be our next show. Now, of course, a lot of people have been asking, well, if you're doing the TV Awards on Tuesday, how are you going to fit everything in? That means you're going to have a lot of show. That means that you're gonna have a lot of show. You're gonna have the TV Awards, and you're gonna be doing the other stuff that you usually do. Well, folks, next week for the first time in months. I think the last time we did 2 shows was January? For the first time in since the beginning of the year, we will have 2 shows next week. On Tuesday will be the TV Awards, and on Thursday we'll have another show. We'll do all usual stuff, box office beat, TV, box office beat, all the sports coverage we have to do, wrestling, all that kind of stuff. The reason why, because we just can't fit it all in on Tuesday. There's just no way. Plus, there's other things we have to get done next week as well, and I'll get into more of that next week. I don't want to talk about it tonight. We're already on the air late, and I know I said last week I was going to talk about it tonight, but I don't think we're nearly ready to talk about it, and I don't want to get into details until everything is finalized, and everything will be finalized by next Tuesday. So, and this ain't going to be that. I don't think this will be as big of a transition as has happened in the past, but but we'll talk more about what's coming up and what's going to be going down, because everybody's had questions throughout the summer. with everything that's been going on. You know, Mike hasn't been here, and what's the deal? What's going to happen with the show? The show's going to continue. We're not you know, but it's going to continue in a different form, and a form that I think people are going to like, and in a form where I think people are going to get more out of it. So we'll talk more about that next week. It's a lot to get into with that, and we'll have more time to do that next week. So without further ado, I've talked about everything that's going on and all, you know, what's coming up next week. Why we weren't on last night. Remind you about the deadlines passing for the TV awards. We did all that. But before we get going and before we get into everything, because we do have a lot of things to do tonight. Before we get into all that, I have to mention at the top of the show, our country suffered a great loss this weekend, and that was that of Senator John McCain, who was a great American, a great senator, and just a great man, an honorable man, a man of great privilege and respect. You know, and again, you know, this is not a political thing, because I know people say, well, I didn't agree with his forget about the politics and forget everything, okay? John McCain was a great man, a man that did a lot in the Senate, a man that did a lot in his lifetime. He was a prisoner of war. He was a great family man, a great human being, an honorable human being who just, you know, carried himself with a grace and a class that was just on another level. And he comes from an amazing family, a very respectful family, and an honorable family. And he is a tremendous loss for this country, a tremendous loss. And he will be greatly missed. So, you know, John McCain, may rest in peace. And our thoughts and condolences go out to his family, friends, his loved ones. Just a tremendous loss for our country. And he will be for sure missed, for sure. So I just wanted to note that off the top of the show tonight, among everything else here. Again, far more important than anything else we're going to talk about tonight. So let's get into the more trivial things that we have to talk about. We got our box office beat, which we'll start with, and then we have some wrestling stuff to get to really quickly, and then we're going to jump into a lot of sports stuff. But it's a lot of quick hitters. But we got a lot to talk about on those quick hitters. So, all right, so let's get down to business here. Let's get right into the box office. Let's get into entertainment here and talk box office. And not much to talk about. Although, you know, I think the theme for this August would be, you know, and we set the stage for August. Oh, the summer's petering out just like last year, you know. But really, this August has not been that bad. The box office has to be ecstatic that August has ended up being as good as it has been. Because, you know, you have a weekend this weekend, you're thinking not much is expected of it. And then Crazy Rich Asians has a ridiculous second week hold where it only drops 6.4% and holds tight at 24.8 million for its second straight week at number one, which holds the box office up really, really well on a week that really could, you know, right along with this coming weekend could end up being a bad weekend. And then between that and the Meg, which held strong in second with a 39.4% drop of only 12.8 million, that really makes what could have been a disastrous week for the box office a fairly decent week for late August. And that's been the story of August. This August could have been a doldrums kind of month, just like last August was, and it hasn't been, because of movies like The Meg, because of movies like Crazy Rich Asians, because of the holes of movies like Christopher Robin and Mission Impossible, and, you know, I could go on. It's ended up being a fairly decent month. Now, that doesn't mean that it hasn't had its negatives. Happy Time Murders did not do great, only 9.5 million. Now, I told you all it could either be a really big hit or a really big flop. It's a flop. This movie should have done better with the promoting and that and the controversy. You would think it would have done better. There hasn't been a lot of R-rated comedies. It's a unique concept. You think it was a risk, but, you know, you'd like to think the curiosity would have carried it. Would have been better, but who knows? I don't know if it would have done that much better given the time. You can question that. Staying put in fourth with Mission Impossible Fallout with 8 million, 24% drop off there. That's not a negative, but You know, have to point out that that's not a negative. That's one positive, I should say. But I have to point that out because it's the next one up on the board. Here's another negative, though. Mile 22 in its second weekend, which only pulled in 6.3 million, dropping from third to fifth. Movie hasn't done well. You know, just hasn't done well. And again, that sometimes happens with these kind of action thrillers. So that's been a negative. Christopher Robin stayed put in sixth with 6.2 million, 29% drop off in its fourth week, which isn't too bad. And then two more negatives of this month. Alpha, which dropped from fifth to seventh with 6 million, which isn't great. Again, that movie just got delayed too many times, I think. Black Klansman dropped from seventh to eighth for a little over $5 million, which is not bad given the limited release of it. And everything else finished under 5 million, including AXO or AXI. I don't know which one they're going with, but I'll pronounce it both ways. 2.7 million in its first weekend, and I think we all could have seen that. That was the epitome of a late August release. That movie. Just something that they tossed out there, hoping that some families would go out and see it. Did not work out. So yeah. So again, because of Crazy Rich Asians, because of the Meg, because of Mission Impossible and Christopher Robin, those movies holding their end of the bargain, this ends up being a fairly decent weekend at the box office when it could have been a complete and utter disaster. So you give it a positive, even though there were some negatives, like Mile 22 over the last couple of weeks, like the Happy Time Murders this week, and AXO or AXL this week, and Alpha last week and this week. There are some negatives, but there's a lot of positives too, and that's something that you didn't think you would have late in August here. Now, this coming weekend, not much to talk about. You have an expanding release in Searching, a thriller from Sony Screen Gems. It will only be in 1,100 theaters. It's already made $786,000, starring John Cho and Deborah Messing. Probably won't make more than $1.52 million if it's lucky. So that won't factor in anything. You got Operation Finale, which is opening tonight, a thriller from NGM, opening at 1,818 theaters, starring Oscar Isaac and Ben Kingsley. It's only a $24 million budget. Not much expected of its theater count. Again, if it makes $2 million, consider it lucky. The only major release, and this doesn't even qualify as a major because it's only opening in 2,100 theaters, from Lionsgate, a sci-fi action film called Kin, starring Miles Truitt, Jack Reynor, James Franco, Zoe Kravitz, Dennis Quaid, Carrie Coon. Again, maybe $3.5–4 million. It will not make a lot of money. So this weekend's going to belong to the holdover. So you probably will see Crazy Rich Asians, which is kind of taking on a life. And we said that could happen, just like Black Panther was for African Americans. Crazy Rich Asians can be for Asian Americans, and just the fact that it's a good movie too, that helps it too. So I could see Crazy Rich Asians pulling in #1 again. And this is that weekend that you see every now and then where the top movie will probably only have about 14–15 million. That's how this weekend's going to be, if it's lucky. So I think Crazy Rich Asians will come in with 15 million. I'll probably see the Meg around 8 or 9. Happy Time Murders around 6 or so. Actually, no, Mission Impossible. Yeah, okay, 6 million, 7 million for Happy Time Murders, about 6.5, 6 million for Mission Impossible. I think everything else will be under 5 million. Keep in mind, that's for the 3 days, because this is Labor Day weekend. We're not going to do 3 day and 4 day. We haven't been doing that lately, so we're not going to do it again this weekend. Labor Day weekend's not that big of a box office weekend anyway, too much going on. This weekend, we're just going to do the 3 day numbers, and the 3 day numbers, that's how I think it'll go. 4 days, uptick, maybe another million or two added on to everything. This might get a few more movies over 5 million. But other than that, that's the way I see this weekend going. So not much to talk about. Weekend, this is the low. Now, last weekend, the box office got a surprise weekend again. After that, things will start to slowly turn. As we start to build now, we're going into the fall movie season now. Next weekend has 3 big wide releases. I don't expect anyone to be huge, big number of releases, but they'll probably do something. Even if it's not a lot, they'll probably do something. And the weekend after that, you do have a couple of releases coming out, like Predator, that might end up pulling in some better numbers. And then you start to build from there and start to build yourself at the box office as you lead into October and November and December, which are big box office months traditionally. So that's the story in terms of the box office. Not much to talk about, but we're in the doldrums, the final days of the summer movie season, which are always kind of the doldrums. So it's been a better end of the summer than we could have anticipated. In the box and Hollywood and the studios have to be very happy about that for sure. So that's the box office story. Nothing else really going on in entertainment that we really have to talk about right away. So we'll leave everything else alone, especially in the interest of time. And we'll jump into some wrestling here as we move on tonight. And talk about some of the big developments from Raw and SmackDown. Because there's been a lot of big developments. Last week, we were left puzzled by the end of Raw with what looked like a very ambiguous scene with the Shield helping Roman Reigns to retain his title when Braun Strowman tried to cash in. This week, Braun Strowman cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase for Hell in a Cell. So we set up that match. He gives his case to Baron Corbin, which is an odd thing. People wonder if maybe that's going to factor in later. Maybe Corbin steals the case or gives it to somebody else, like a Kevin Owens, for instance, which we'll get to in a minute. And then we have the main event where Roman Reigns is teamed up with Braun Strowman against Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre. And Braun Strowman teams up with Dolph and Drew and attacks Reigns and then attacks Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, who come out to help Roman Reigns. And, I was like, okay, they just turned Braun Strowman heel. Now, I'm not saying that might not have been their intention, okay? But I don't know how this really makes Braun Strowman a heel. Because Roman did the exact same thing last week, the whole 3-on-1 thing. So I don't really see this as a very heelish move. And here's the other thing that people are forgetting too. This is the exact same thing they did with Strowman last fall. He was feuding with the Shield last fall when the Shield had their little mini reunion. They came at him 3-on-1, and then he allied with Kane and Miz and a lot of those guys against the Shield. But then Roman got the mumps and all this other stuff happened, and we forgot about that. So this is not the first time they've had Braun Strowman team up with heels against the Shield. I really don't think anything's going to completely turn Braun Strowman here unless they book him on his own against Seth Rollins or Dean Ambrose. If Roman Reigns in that ring, I don't think it's going to turn Braun heel. I'm sorry, because it's going to be looked at as, well, Roman is using Shield to protect himself. People are seeing right through this. So even if WWE is trying to turn Braun heel, and I don't know if they are or they aren't, I don't think the crowd's going to buy into it. Just like they're not buying into the Becky Lynch thing. I just don't see it. Because you had Roman do this first. So, I just don't think I see it. So I'm not seeing this as something horrible that's going to derail Braun Strowman here. I'm just not. Even if he loses his cash, which I think is probably going to happen, I'm just not seeing it. So, another interesting kind of weird end to Raw, because you really don't know what the deal is there. But you had a lot of good things on Raw besides what the stuff I just mentioned, because those were good, like, development kind of movement segments. It's that they left you with some questions once again, which I guess is a good thing, keeps you tuning in. But you had some more we had Trish Stratus show up and have a segment with Elias, and then of course they had Natalya, Ronda and Trish against Mickey James and Alicia Fox, which was a cool segment. We had more build with Triple H, Undertaker, and a reveal that Shawn Michaels will be back next week, which is interesting. So I mean, some interesting stuff on Raw on Monday night. Some furthering of some of these feuds like Baron Corbin and Finn Balor. But the big highlight and the thing that people came up with is shocking, given the Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns stuff. The big topic coming out of Raw was Kevin Owens. Now, they were in Canada, they were in Toronto. They announced SummerSlam for their next year and all that big stuff. They had Kevin Owens return, have an amazing match with Seth Rollins. And then he loses the match basically because he got too cute. And then sits in the ring for about 5-10 minutes and then announces that he quits. And then leaves. And then WWE, of course, moves him to the alumni portion of the website, and which is what they do when they have these angles, because it is an angle, folks. He didn't quit. Okay, he said signed a new contract. It's been well reported. That's not the interesting part here. The interesting part here is, what does this mean for Kevin Owens? Where are they going with Kevin Owens? Is this a face turn? He's been on a little bit of a losing streak. Are they going to turn him face? Because he does have some sympathy right now from the Braun Strowman feud and everything else. Is he going face? Is he just going to do this to buy this time, and then Baron Corbin gives him the Money in the Bank briefcase to keep him in Raw, and he just interferes and cashes in at Hell in a Cell? Is he going to be the next Paul Heyman guy? What's the deal with what they're going to do with Kevin Owens? That's what's interesting about this, because it's going to probably be one of those three. I would imagine. I don't see it being anything else. So it's going to be really interesting to see how long he's out, because he is a little bit banged up, I'd imagine. But how long he's going to be out and where this goes, that's what's going to be interesting about this. So, definitely the biggest hot topic coming out of Raw. So, very big Raw, lots of stuff going on. And then you have SmackDown, where, again, a lot of stuff going on, furthering a lot of these feuds. Orton and Jeff Hardy, which is building to a Hell in a Cell match. The stuff and Daniel Bryan and Miz, which got really, really heated again. Lots of interesting stuff on SmackDown, but the biggest thing had to be the main event, which Charlotte and Carmella, which they had to do that because obviously they're moving on to Becky Lynch and Charlotte. So they get rid of the rematch. Charlotte wins, and then Becky attacks her. Okay. Now look, they've been doing their best, WWE. I get what they're trying to do. Oh, we're trying. We're gonna get people to turn on Becky. We're gonna get people to turn on Becky. They've been using their social media. They've been doing this all week. Well, here again and again, I think part of WWE is like, well, maybe this is just certain crowds. No, it's not certain crowds. People really are not going to turn on Becky Lynch. They sympathize with her. They feel bad for her. They're turning on Charlotte. And that's what's going on. That's what's going on. Because you heard what happened at the end of SmackDown on Tuesday night. Becky comes out, attacks Charlotte from behind, holds the title over her head and calls Charlotte a bitch, and throws the title down. The crowd was cheering their head off. They were not booing her. They were not booing her. So that is a problem for WWE. That is a big problem for WWE. Now, in the old days, any major wrestling fan will tell me this. In the old days, what they would have done was do a double turn, realizing that the crowd was not accepting what they were giving them. But they ain't going to do that because they don't do that stuff anymore. They choose who they choose to be a face. They choose who they choose to be a heel. And that's what they do. And they stuck with it, no matter what. The last time I think that they made changes based on crowd reaction and let the crowd kind of dictate where they go was Randy Orton after Shawn Michaels retired. They had Orton still as a heel, but the crowd turned them face, even though they were trying to turn the other two members of Legacy, DiBiase and Rhodes, face. I can't remember another person since then that they haven't gone with the crowd on, that they've gone with the crowd on. So, in all honesty, they have a real big problem on their hands between obviously they're doing with Braun and Roman, which again is interesting, but boy, they're really on the edge there. It could end up being a disaster there. And then everything they got going on with Becky and Charlotte, which is already turning into a disaster because it's going completely against what they really want to do. So, I mean, it was a great segment, but at the same time, they're not getting out of these segments what they want because the crowd's rejecting what they want. You got to listen to the crowd. And the crowd is telling you they're on Becky's side, not Charlotte's. So stick with Becky. And look, this turn for Becky's been great. It's been great. So it's not a problem for Becky. It's a problem for Charlotte. Now, look, it ain't going to hurt. Charlotte is not losing sleep over how the crowd reacts. I think Charlotte would rather be the heel. WWE's probably losing sleep over it, though. As they should be, because they botched this big time. Big time. So Raw and SmackDown, lots of big developments, some great segments, some interesting stuff, some more questions and answers in some regards, but generally a very interesting couple shows this week. Very interesting. So we'll see where it goes here as we continue to build to Hell in a Cell. In what, 3 weeks? I think that's probably the rest of that now. But so interesting stuff. All right. So we move on from wrestling now because that's all I really had diagram to talk about, and nobody else in the email box or anything brought anything else up. So I'm not going to bring anything else up. Let's jump to sports because that's what we have a lot to do here tonight. Again, a lot of these things we're going to talk about very quickly, but we're going to talk about them nonetheless. First of all, let's do some college football. College football starts this weekend. We're not going to do any we're not going to do any previews or anything. I really don't think there's anything. Normally when we do football shows, the all football shows, I'll go down the list and point out what I think are big games and all that kind of stuff. I know there are some good games on the docket this weekend. There are a few, but really, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that I don't see anything earth-shattering on the schedule this weekend. I really don't. I think there'll be some good games. I do think there'll be some good games. I'm trying to look at the schedule and see now. Saturday. Okay, Saturday. Let's see. Thursday. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything that speaks to me as something that's going to be Miami LSU on Sunday. It's not bad, but I don't see anything. I think Miami's gonna be okay there. It's Monday, Virginia Tech, Florida State. It's a pretty equal game. Either one can win. So now I'm not seeing anything or I mean, obviously those two games I just mentioned I'll watch, but other than that, I don't see anything on the board. Alabama, Louisville. I mean, none. I think the teams you expect to win are going to win those. I really don't see anything on the board. Auburn, Washington might be the only game where I can see something. I could see Auburn beating Washington. But other than that, I don't see any potential upsets on the board of any of the big games. So I really don't have anything as far as the games go this weekend. Anything really to talk about? Anything really interesting to say about those? But we do have to talk about the Urban Meyer thing because he has been suspended. Which, look, I'm kind of shocked about because I thought for sure. I thought for sure that Urban Meyer would be fired because in this day and age, you'd rather just not deal with it. But apparently, that's not going to be how Ohio State does this. They're going to suspend Urban Meyer. He's on administrative leave, paid administrative leave. Which again will help the investigation move along quickly. But still, it's like, you expected. Again, you expected there to be termination. I mean, you really did. I did because again, in this day and age, given what's going on in society, you've seen teams and companies and studios and what have you just say, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know, let the investigation go, do what it has to do. But at the same time, you know what, maybe we should find a clause and maybe let's settle this thing and let's just end it rather than wait and see and because again, you run, if you wait and see, you run the risk. You run the risk of maybe finding more stuff out and then it gets really bad and it looks worse. If you cut ties now, you can kind of be like, okay, we've already done something, so leave us alone about it. It's for the person that did it to deal with. So I'm shocked that he hasn't gotten terminated, or at the very least, I'm shocked that we didn't get, because it's pretty. The expectation is he's going to be back this year. And see, here's my thing with this, okay? Because I don't want to take it from a sports perspective, like, oh, how's the team going to do? I don't like to do that because this is above that. There's a lot of other bigger issues with this than what happens on the field and everything. I get completely understand it, but let's just throw the sports perspective out there with this for a second. This is going to be a major distraction for the team, for these players, because it's inconsistency for them from a coaching standpoint, and it's going to hover over them the whole year. So even if Urban comes back, okay, Urban Meyer comes back, well, what happens if they discover something else? Well, then he has to go away again, and then everything's upset. To me, it would have been better to just say, you know what, he's gone, he's not coming back. The team knows what's going on. They can move on. This whole, well, he's on his paid administrative leave, and all that, it's just, you know, from a sports perspective, it's wrong, because it's a distraction, and especially in college, it can mess with the players, and it's not a good thing. It's just not. But sports perspective out of it, because again, that's necessary to what the other issues with it, which are, you don't know. Again, you're in an investigation. And I know, innocent to proven guilty. So I'm not saying he should lose his job per se, but maybe say you're not coming back to coaching until this thing is done. And I guess they kind of say, oh, well, investigation going to move fast now. But you know what? I really don't think this investigation is going to be done even when he comes back. I think they're going to wait and see and make sure until when Ohio State feels like, okay, it's safe to come out and say Urban Meyer is coming back, that's when he's going to come back. That's what they're going to say. That's what they're going to say. To me, it would have been better just to say, you know what, he's gone, he's not coming back. Or at least say he's gone and not coming back this year. At least say that. Then this team knows. You know, by that point, you'll know one way or the other. You'll make sure that there's nothing else that's going to pop up, even if he is clear, and then, you know, everything moves on. You know, not cleared, but like, let's say they say, okay, you know what, we're happy with what we found out, we can bring him back. But then 2 months later, they found something else. Okay? This protects you from that. At least you give yourself some time. And the team is allowed to kind of move on. So I'm not asking for termination. I'm asking for something a little more certain. Especially, look what happened with Zach Smith on Twitter. He had this big Twitter rant calling out the school and all this stuff. It doesn't make him look good. It doesn't make Urban look good. So, again, I think it would have been better off just coming out and saying Urban Meyer's not coaching the football team this year. His future's uncertain right now. We're not turning him. He's on administrative leave. The team right now for this entire season will be coached, will be under a different coach. We'll move on, we'll move on for this year. And then the team everything will follow into place with the team. And then this allows Ohio State to wait and see how this investigation goes. And then it just gives you the time you need to go through this process the right way. Instead of being like, well, he's on paid administrative leave. He's going to pop up probably in week 4 or week 5, just in time for the stretch run. And, then if something pops up a couple weeks later, we're going to be in trouble again. Instead of just simply saying he's not coaching this year and letting things kind of play out. It would be better for all involved. So I think the way they're handling this is a mistake. I'm shocked they're handling it this way because I thought it would be termination. I'm not asking for them to fire him. Innocent or proven guilty. I'd rather they not fire him, because if they fire him and he was innocent, then it sucks. Well, not necessarily innocent, but if you find out that he wrote, that it's not, I shouldn't say quite so bad, because what he did was bad. So we know what he did. So we can't dispute that. That's why, I don't have any issue with this, a punishment being doled out here, because there had to be one. The question, what the punishment was going to be. But I'm just saying, for the university, for all involved, I think it would have been better to let this thing play out instead of trying to say, well, okay, he's on leave, he'll be back soon, and that's the way we're going to play it. I mean, it's not like you're going to find out that he didn't do already what we know he did. We already know that we already know what happened in regards to him, at least part of it. Maybe there's more. I don't know. I don't think there is, but who knows? We know that his assistant did what he did and Urban knew about. We know that part. Is there more? I guess that's what the investigation's for. But that's why, because we don't know there's more, that's why letting it play out and saying, you know what, he's not going to coach this year would have been better. Termination. I expected termination. That's what I expected. I'm not saying it was the right move. I'm kind of glad they didn't, but I expected it. But I guess my suggestion, just to sum this up and be more clear about it, my suggestion would have been just to say he's not coaching this year. Let it all play out. Let's see where it goes. This gives the university time and let things fall where they may. And it helps the team because they can just focus on football and not deal with the distraction of this whole sad situation. But they didn't choose to do that. And I'm shocked. I'm shocked by the way they're handling this. I really am. I think it's the wrong way to handle it, but it is what it is. So that's the Urban Meyer situation. I just want to talk about that real quick and obviously do a little college football because that's going to be getting on the way this week. NFL gets on the way next week. We'll do some stuff with that next week. So let's stay on the subject of football because we're talking about football, so why switch gears, right? A couple of big developments from the NFL this week. First off, we had Odell Beckham Jr. finally got his money. He will be staying with the Giants for I think it's 5 years. 5 years. Let's see. Contract extension. 5 year, $95 million. Which, we knew this had to happen because they're clearly in win now mode. They're keeping with Eli for at least another 2 years. They got Saquon Barkley instead of going and getting a franchise squad. They're all in on winning. They had to do this. He's done Odell Beckham Jr. has done everything right this summer. And, everything seems to have calmed down with him. So this move is the right move. They needed to do this. He deserved to be the highest paid wide receiver. When he's healthy, he is. Great move by the Giants and good job by them getting this done. Now look, here's the thing that Odell Beckham Jr. cannot do. Now that he's gotten his money the other way and start with antics again and start going down the wrong path again, because then it's like, okay, you only were on your good behavior because you wanted the money. So I don't think he's going to do that. He seems pretty happy. He seems pretty content. I think he's turned a corner. I don't anticipate that, but you don't want to see that. That'd be the worst thing he could do. So, but good for him. He got his money, and here you go. We'll see what the Giants got because that's huge. They got out their business and try to win a Super Bowl, which is what we picked them to do last year, and obviously they disappointed. So that's one big piece of news for the NFL this week. I think that was a good move by the Giants, get that done and handled. And the other big NFL news this week comes today from the Green Bay Packers, who signed Aaron Rodgers to a mega contract extension to make him the highest paid player in the league. Highest paid quarterback. Look, he is the best quarterback in the league. And you don't want to lose him. Not that I thought Green Bay was going to lose him anyway, but you don't want to lose him. But they got him for $134 million. All right? Huge. $33.5 million in new money he gets, plus incentives per year. Gets over $100 million in guarantees. Now, that's something that you never used to hear in the NFL, folks. Guaranteed money. And that's something to keep an eye on because you're hearing this more and more. A lot of players are getting guaranteed money. Odell Beckham Jr., Aaron Rodgers. A lot of players are getting guaranteed money. And in a league that has a hard cap, this could become a dicey situation worth watching. So keep that in mind going forward here because the league can't handle too many players getting guaranteed money. It just can't. But look, if anybody deserves a contract like this, it's Aaron Rodgers for how much he means to that team and to this league because, he really, when he is healthy, he's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. He deserved that money. And okay, let me be clear here because, I think any of us would agree that the kind of money that athletes get is kind of absurd. But you know what? In terms of what you see these athletes get, he deserves that money. So Good for him. Green Bay need to get this done. They do. He's happy. Now they go about their business. And that's really what this is about, folks. You want to keep your franchise players happy and get these things done. You don't want them to simmer because it can become a distraction. So good for Green Bay, good for the Giants in getting these done. And, now you get to go about your business. And again, going forward, this represents something that I think is going to be an issue for the NFL. The hard cap and these guaranteed money contracts. How is this going to play out? If somebody gets hurt, it's going to be a disaster for your team. If Aaron Rodgers gets hurt and can't play again, God forbid that happens. But if he does, Green Bay won't be able to do anything. Same thing with the Giants. God forbid. But if it happens, it's going to be an issue. And this is why this is a situation and a saga worth keeping an eye on. How does this play out over the next few years, especially when they get into another CBA? It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So lots of interesting stuff as we head into the the NFL, the final week of the NFL preseason. Aaron Rodgers, his big extension. Odell Beckham Jr. getting his money. And then today, I didn't put this in the show description, but we have Teddy Bridgewater traded from the Jets to the Saints, which the Jets are going to trade him because they're clearly going to start Sam Darnold. But they trade Teddy Bridgewater for a third-round pick. He will back up Drew Brees. And this is interesting to me because, number one, the Jets were going to make this move, and they made it at the right time. They got a good pick for it. Good pick for Teddy. Teddy Bridgewater is only 25 years old. This kid, when healthy, he is going to help you. He is still a young quarterback. He still has a lot of room, but we know he can win games in this league. And if you're the Saints, this is a good thing for you because, first of all, the Saints are built to win now. Okay? Now, Drew Brees is your quarterback, but if Drew Brees were, heaven forbid, to get hurt, Teddy Bridgewater can step right in and excel in that spot. And then let's say, that doesn't happen, but Drew Brees plays another year and then he decides to retire. Teddy Bridgewater can easily take over that team with all the weapons you have on it. So this is a good situation. Even if Teddy has to sit for this is a good situation. We can learn a lot from Drew Brees, and if he has to step in, he can step in. And if not, after Drew retires, he can take over a very good football team. So this is a good situation for him, and I think it's a good trade for both the Jets and the Saints here that took place today. So, so lots of movement here in terms of contracts and trades here as we approach the final weekend of the NFL preseason. So lots of movement there. So it's hard to believe, but NFL season will get underway a week from tomorrow. So we look forward to that. We'll obviously talk about that next week. College football, of course, gets underway this weekend. We already mentioned that. So we talked a lot of football. As I said, we're going to be doing some quick hitters, kind of moving through some topics and kind of going quickly, because the baseball stuff's going to take us longer. So let's jump into the baseball. I want to get to now talk the college basketball thing last, because I might rant about that for a few minutes. Let's do some baseball right now. And a week ago I said that we were setting – not a week ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago. We were setting the stage for what could be an epic conclusion to the season. I said that, there's a lot. If you look at the standings, things are very interesting. And the Yankees have even made it interesting in AL East, because we said a week ago that it wasn't necessarily over. But the Yankees got into this week, came in only, 5 back in the loss column? Now, they've dropped a couple games back after some bad play against the White Sox. But look, folks, they're still in this thing. They're only 7.5 games. 7.5 games back. It's not a lot. What was my big thing that I mentioned? September 1st is Saturday. If you're the Yankees, get to within 5. They could still do that. And then get to within 3 by the time you play the Red Sox on the 18th. They could still do that. They're right there. And I'm gonna take a more positive view than a lot of people are going to after seeing the Yankees lose 2 out of 3 to the White Sox. The White Sox are playing good baseball right now. The Red Sox are not going to have an easy time with them over this weekend. They're not. So this, to me, this game right now, this race right now is far from over, especially since now it's down to right around that 5 to 7 game mark. But even if it is, you look at the wild card, and the Yankees are obviously right there. And so, but now, as close as some of these races are, obviously AL Central is not close. Indians have got that well in hand. And again, the AL East, the Red Sox still have that 7.5 game lead, even though the Yankees are tightening that up a little bit. even if the Yankees can't close in on the Red Sox, they still have a 4.5 game lead in the wild card. Now, something has happened over the last week. Oakland has dropped back a little bit, okay? But the team that's dropped a lot is Seattle. They're now 5.5 games back in the wild card and barely hanging on in the division. What's happened here is that Oakland, Seattle, and let's be honest here, with these teams playing each other, Houston and Oakland, Seattle, somebody was going to drop back. It was more than likely, and Seattle has been that team. Now, here's the concern for Oakland. They're starting to get banged up in the pitching department, so we'll see if they can thread water and hold on here. But here's something that's interesting that's not getting enough talk. Tampa Bay, who I've said since July to keep an eye on, they are now 70-62. They're only 9 out of the wild card. They're not going to win the AL East, so don't look at that. They're 9 out of the wild card. They're 4.5 games back of Seattle. Okay? Tampa swept the Red Sox. They obviously have played well against the Yankees. If Tampa Bay can continue to play the way that they have, okay, now if Seattle keeps dropping back and Oakland starts to take in water because of what's happening with their pitching, Tampa could actually sneak in this thing. But they have to keep playing at this level. And they have some games, I think, with Oakland. So this is going to be interesting to see how if Tampa can sneak in here, much like what's happened in the NL with the Cardinals. So keep an eye on Tampa. I think that's a team to add into the race here. Seattle's kind of on the downturn. Tampa's on the ascension here. So that AL wildcard race bears a lot of watching. I think the Yankees are going to be okay there. But what happens between Oakland, Seattle, and Tampa is going to be what's going to be interesting going down the stretch here. And on the NL, we talked about the Cardinals and how big of a turnaround they've had. Well, now they're a game and a half up for the top wild card spot, which is incredible considering where they were. Milwaukee's up there in the second wild card spot, up a half game on the Diamondbacks and the Rockies, a game and a half on the Dodgers, 2 up on the Phillies. And the Nationals and the Giants are still kind of hanging on by a thread there. We talked a lot about them at that 6.5 game mark. That's not an elimination, but, given how many teams they have to leapfrog, it's going to be kind of hard. So that NL wildcard race is really, really interesting. And so was some of these NL division races that we got going on here. As you look at the races, the West and the NL is ridiculous. With Arizona and the Rockies tied, and the Dodgers a game back, and the Giants 6 games. So Giants still hanging around. And then you look at the NL Central, the Cubs up 4 games on the Cardinals and 5.5 games on the Brewers. So the Cubs look like right now they're okay for the division. But still, that could go either way there. And then the NL East has kind of, again, the Braves kind of in the Cubs boat. They're 4 up on the Phillies and 8.5 on the Nationals. I don't think the Nationals stand a chance for the division. The Phillies still do, but not, the Nationals. Nationals kind of still in that wild card race still. So, both the Braves and the Cubs have gotten some distance in their respective divisions, but the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, and the Dodgers, that's going to go down to the wire. And the Giants are kind of still hanging around there too. And then we talked about the NL wild card, which is going to be very interesting. The AL wild card, which is also going to be very interesting. And Tampa's winning again tonight, folks. And Oakland lost. And Seattle lost. So if Tampa Bay wins tonight, they're going to be 8 out. 8 out. Keep an eye on them. I'm telling you right now, keep an eye on them. They're playing good baseball. And as I mentioned, the AL East has got somewhat more interesting here. And then, of course, the AL West is interesting. Astros up 2.5 games on the A's, 8 up on the Mariners. Mariners are not going to win the division now. The division's going to be between the Astros and the Athletics. And then we'll see what the wild card plays out. So some of these races have gotten a little less compelling. Like the Astros have kind of stabilized themselves. The Braves, the Cubs have stabilized themselves. So some of these races are not nearly as close, but then again, you still got the 2 wild card races, which are interesting. The NL West and the AL West, which is interesting. The AL East could still get interesting. So there's still enough races there that are interesting. So it's not like it's not like last few years where things have, as we got in September, have gotten drama free. Some races have kind of, some teams have kind of stabilized, and some races have kind of, become more distant. And then some races are still pretty close. It's still going to be interesting, but again, some teams have distanced themselves a little bit. But that can change in a week. That's the way things go. So So if you look at the upcoming week, okay, the Yankees and the Red Sox are both playing bad teams, and the Yankees have a West Coaster next week, so it'll be very, very big. What Tampa does over this next week is going to be so huge. Because like I said, you're getting to that all-important September 1st, date. Get within 5. If you're close, if you're within 5, or if you're 6 out, then you're still in, but still, I always say the goal is 5. Let's see where Tampa is on Labor Day. Let's see where the Yankees are in relation to the Red Sox on Labor Day. Let's see what happens with the Giants and the Nationals if they can get closer this week. Because that, to me, when we sit here next week and we look at the standings, teams that are kind of just hanging on, like a Tampa, like a San Francisco Giants, like a Washington Nationals, if they haven't closed the gap past where they are right now, then I think they're done. But if they have, I think they're very much alive. Because once you hit Labor Day, you know who's truly in this race, and then you play out the string because you're under 30 games, and you see where you're at. So it's going to be very, very, very interesting to see where these teams end up and where they are a week from now. Very interesting. Now, we probably won't talk about pardon me, I got to plug this in. We probably won't talk about these teams until next Thursday. So by that point, we'll get even more of a clearer picture and see where we're at. And really be able to take a look at these teams and see what, really what we're going to be seeing. Because, over this next week, I think a lot of things are going to be settled. And we'll see who's going to be the final teams left standing as these races get to their final weeks. So this is going to be a big week, I think, for a lot of teams. It's a huge week for the Rays. It's a huge week for the Yankees and the Red Sox. It's a huge week for the Mariners and the A's. It's a huge week for the Giants and the Nationals. And I think the Phillies, because they're starting to fade. Those teams in particular, this is a big week for them. A big week. So we'll keep an eye on and see where things are in a week. Because things could either things will get tighter or we'll see some teams distance themselves. Maybe a little bit of both. But I think one thing we're going to definitely have, even if some teams fall out of it, one thing we're going to definitely have is interesting September, which we haven't had the last couple of years. A lot of these races would be good in August, and by the time we turn to Labor Day, some of these races were pretty much done. I don't think you're going to have that this year. I think we're going to have a really interesting month of September, and that's what you want for the end of the baseball season. That's what you want. So we'll see where we end up in a week, because that's going to tell us the story of what's going to be happening in September. Okay, one more sports story to do, and then we have done everything we need to do tonight. College basketball made some major waves this week when it decided to add a new college basketball tournament selection evaluation tool to its selection process. They're getting rid of the RPI, which we knew they were going to do, and they decided to add in this new feature called NET. It's a new college basketball ranking tool. It's going to be used for the selection committee for college basketball for the NCAA tournament. It's going to replace the RPI, like I said, and what it stands for, NET, is the NCAA evaluation tool, which will take game results, strength of schedule, game location, scoring margin, net offensive and defensive efficiency, and the quality of win. The first net rankings will likely be released in late November, early December on a weekly basis. They will then later be released on a daily basis. All games will be weighed evenly regardless when they take place during the season. The margin of victory will have a cap of 10 points to discourage running up the score against inferior opponents. So this, okay. They considered making other components a part of it, but they decided not to. So basically what this is, and I'm going to sum this up very easily. This is them trying to add sabermetrics to college basketball, which I hate. Now, let me tell you another thing I hate about this. I hate, and I know some people will disagree with this. I absolutely hate them getting rid of the last 10 statistic. I've always been in favor of it. I've always liked it because a team can be, just like a team can be different at the beginning. A team can be different at the end of the year versus the beginning of the year. A team can be so different at the end of the year versus the beginning of the year. How many times have we seen a team that struggled at the beginning of the season get hot at the end and win the NCAA tournament? How many times? I've always liked the last 10 statistic. I thought it always told a good story about where a team is and why they were a good selection. I hate not involving that. I hate getting rid of that. I'm hoping somehow people think like that when they're still in the selection committee and thinking about teams to select for the tournament. I still hope that factors into their minds. I think it's important. How much momentum you have going into March, I think, is a very critical thing. A very critical thing. And I don't think that should be ignored. But I hate the sabermetrics aspect of this. I hate, I just don't like it. I really don't. I really don't. I mean, we knew they were already putting more importance on, quality of wins and losses, strength of schedule, game location. But I don't like involving score margin. And here's the thing I hate the most. And this is why I hate the sabermetrics aspect of this. Net offensive and defensive efficiency. Why do we need that? Why does that matter? How does that matter for a team we're selecting for the NCAA tournament? Because here's the thing, folks. Okay, when we're selecting a team, and I know that other things are taken into account, strength of schedule, game result, location, blah, blah, blah. So I know this ain't the only determining factor here. But I don't like it as a factor because it's an easy to skew statistic. So a team like Gonzaga or St. Mary's, which plays in a terrible conference, where they they're going to win more games. They're going to have better offensive statistics or defensive statistics because they're playing bad teams. They're going to get in when some years when now Gonzaga usually deserves, but St. Mary's going to get in when they, and I hate to just point out St. Mary's and trying to find an example that I think works. I just picked them because they play in a bad conference. We're going to put in a team like St. Mary's that plays in a bad conference over another team because they're defensive and offense. Because here's the thing, even though they're going to include other things involved here, okay? There's other things involved here. When it gets down, let's say it gets down to 4 or 5 teams for like 2 spots, okay? You're going to look at each one. You're going to look at each one of these teams. We often have seen it before where they'll look at 1 or 2 things on a profile and let that determine what teams they put in. Okay, when it gets down to those final teams, they're nitpicking. So they look for any little thing. Well, let's say this time they're looking at St. Mary's versus a team like, let's say, or let's say a team like a Clemson in the ACC. A team like Clemson who plays in the ACC and will have better statistics or not have as good statistics because they're playing better competition. Now, maybe Clemson has a softer schedule. I'm not getting into that. Let's say Clemson played the best of the ACC. Duke, North Carolina, Virginia, Louisville, whatever, okay? They played a lot of tough games. They won a lot of close games, okay? But, they're a bubble team. Well, their offensive and defensive efficiency is not as good as St. Mary's. And for some reason, decide that that's the statistic they're looking at to decide what team they go with. Then they put St. Mary's in over Clemson. It's not fair. Because that statistic doesn't matter to me. Offensive and defensive efficiency shouldn't even be a tool. It shouldn't be a part of a tool. Because we've seen some. I mean, again, you're going to put teams in that don't deserve to get in because some of their efficiency numbers look better. Your efficiency numbers are going to be very much dictated by what conference you play in and what teams you play. If you play a tougher schedule, your numbers are going to be different. They might not be as impressive. Unless you're among the top 10 teams in the country, they're not going to be, because you're night in and night out. If you're in a bad conference, your numbers are going to be more impressive because you're not playing good teams night in and night out. It's a stupid statistic to be part of this. Stupid statistic. I don't mind the other parts. To me, strength of schedule, result, where the game is played, quality wins and losses. Boom. That's all you need. You don't need anything else. You don't need anything else. So while I agree with getting rid of the RPI, and there were parts of this that I knew were coming, like game location and all that stuff, the offensive and defensive efficiency part I think is ridiculously dumb. Ridiculously dumb. And I hope that the last 10 games the team has played is still a very important part of the process. I know you can't factor that into the net, really. Although you can in terms of wins and losses, I imagine. But like, I always think it's so much, like, I always think looking at that last 10 and seeing where a team is. Like, if you look at these bubble teams, okay, I've always said taking a team that's 8-2 over their last 10 or 6 or 7-3 over their last 10 is better than taking a team that went 5-5 because they got more momentum. That's what I always agree with. So I've always valued that last 10, and I hope that's still going to be a big part of this. So those evaluate teams, I think it was needed, but I would not include offensive and defensive efficiency. We don't need sabermetrics and selection tools. We don't need it. Sorry, we don't. We don't. It's dumb. Absolutely dumb. Okay, so now that I got that rant out of the way, I told you I was going to end with a rant. Well, I did. And the feedback's already coming in. See, people agree with me. As they should. We've let sabermetrics ruin enough of sports. Do we have to let them ruin the selection process too? I mean, are we serious with this? We let computers ruin college football for how many years? Now we're going to let... I'm sure you'll be hearing me complain about this for a long time. It'll happen throughout the entire college basketball season. No worries. I can already tell I'm going to be annoyed with this. Because I can already tell it's going to keep some teams out that deserve to be in and some teams in that deserve to be out. I can already tell that this is going to happen. And it's a shame. It's a shame. All right. With that being said, we got through it all. We're done for the night. As always, the show might be over. It's not mean you have to stop interacting, contributing to the show. Continue to have your voice heard. Send us your questions and comments about the show, scheduling of the show, topic ideas, breaking news on sports, entertainment, wrestling wants to cover. Just general feedback, reactions or comments or opinions on anything related to the show. Any questions with the TV awards? We're all done with ballots and stuff, so all you can do is really ask questions. So any questions about the TV awards, you can submit those as well. So any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember, hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And, of course, as always, you can find us on Facebook to search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our fan page once you find it or once you're on it. Again, follow us on social media for the latest information about the show, especially when it comes to scheduling. Obviously, like yesterday, we postponed, and we were real late tonight. So the best way to get that information, know what's going on with the show, is to follow us on social media. And, of course, we also post random things on our social media as well. So to follow us and have access to all that and more. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter at IT Spotlight 411. And again, for anything you tweet regarding the show, use hashtag IT Spotlight 411. And again, on Facebook, just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook. And then make sure that you like our fan page so that you can follow us and interact with us and all that good stuff. You have two ways to keep up with the show. Look back at classic episodes. You can either stream us anytime on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites. When you do, you'll be taken to our show page on both sites. We have access to every episode that we produce for Google Plus and YouTube. That's every episode from mid-October 2015 all up to tonight's current episode. Those episodes are available for you to stream anytime you want. Just check us out on Google Plus and YouTube and search for In the Spotlight 411. If streaming's not your thing, maybe you don't like to see us on screen, you prefer to listen to us or listen to an older episode of the show. If any of that applies to you, check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search In the Spotlight 411. When you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites. You'll have access to every episode we produced in the nearly 8 years we've been doing the show. So all of our Blog Talk Radio episodes from our original run from October 2010, January 2011, all of our Talk Show episodes from January 2011, all the way up to mid-October of 2015, and our Google Plus and YouTube episodes from October 2015, all the way up to tonight's current episode, transferred into audio format for your convenience. Every episode we've ever done is an audio format for your convenience for you to listen to anytime you want on Podbean and iTunes. All episodes in order from the most recent, that being tonight's, all the way to the oldest, way back in October 2010. Those episodes are available for you to stream episodes available for you to listen to, I should say, anytime you want. Maybe you watch a long-time fan wants to check an episode from 4 or 5 years ago, or a new fan wants to check an episode like that for the first time, or just keep up on current episodes. If any of that applies to you, you can check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, and iTunes. And Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, and iTunes, your ways to keep with the show. And look back at classic episodes to search for In the Spotlight 411. Again, just search for In the Spotlight 411. Okay, so as we end here, I want to give a shout out to our, because people ask about him all the time, our co-host Mike here. He's been having a little bit of a rough time. I know he checks in and listens to this once in a while or watches once in a while. So I want to give a shout out to him. He's had a little bit of a rough summer. He's, between his jobs and everything, but his mom went through some health stuff and his cat passed away last week. So we want to send some kind words and stuff. Please do. I'll make sure to let him see those. His cat passed away very suddenly. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it was a very sad situation. So if you want to express any kind thoughts and stuff, I'll make sure to pass them on to him when I see him. So please think of him in your thoughts and prayers for that. It's been a tough couple weeks for them in regards to that. So, but shout out to him, and we'll see. Hopefully we're going to get him back involved in things in the next couple weeks here. So, and of course, I want to thank myself for no great show. I'll pat myself on the back, as I always do, because you people complain when I don't. And, of course, thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. So those that be watching, listening to this in archive, thank you to you as well. Thank you for your patience with last night's postponement and the delay tonight. And also, I rushed through the beginning of the show, kind of got through everything quickly with the reminders and stuff. I kind of stepped over myself a little bit there because I was trying to, and I'm sorry, my dog was kind of going into the cat food, so I had to kind of veer off track there. Live podcasting, I love it. So, anyway, so thank you for your patience in regards to, again, because somebody submitted a ballot. Remember, folks, the deadline passed as soon as I went on the air at 10 o'clock tonight. So no more ballots, winning ballots for the TV awards will be accepted. And again, no more live award submissions. Nomination submissions will be accepted. The deadline passed as soon as we went on the air tonight. That was it. You had an extra day and a half. So that's it. The TV awards, of course, the 8th annual TV awards will take place this coming Tuesday, September the 4th at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Everything should go as planned. We'll announce the winners. It'll be fun. It always is a great event, so we look forward to doing it again. Remember, we're going to be doing 2 shows next week. TV awards Tuesday because it's a special. Thursday, we'll do some sports. We'll do some entertainment. We'll do some wrestling, all the usual stuff we'll do. We'll also have a lot of big announcements that I'm excited about telling you all. A little nervous too, but lots of big announcements. I've been teasing for the last couple of weeks and people have been going crazy because they think something bad's going to happen. But we'll get into all that next week. Again, we're not canceling. We're changing things up. I think you're all going to like it. So just bear with us. We'll announce all that stuff next week. My dog agrees with me. So big week on the show next week, and it's kind of like our welcome home week. We always say that once we get past Labor Day, summer's over. So a welcome home week next week, TV awards, some fun stuff, some big announcements. Tune in. We'll get into all that next week. And in the meantime, again, thank you for your patience, understanding, and thank you for joining us. That's it for tonight. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, a great Labor Day weekend. Stay safe, enjoy yourselves, and a great start to your week next week. We'll see you back here this coming Tuesday night here as we start off September. Broadcasting and streaming live on YouTube at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, the 8th Annual TV Awards. You don't want to miss it. Should be fun. That's our next show. Until then, I hope you all have a great night. We'll see you next week.